Jourdan Blue's life began in New Orleans, where she first discovered her voice in church choirs and school theater programs. But unlike many young singers described as naturally gifted, his story was never cushioned by stability or opportunity. According to local accounts and interviews, Blue's teenage years were marked by turmoil that forced him into adulthood too soon. After a series of conflicts and setbacks, he found himself kicked out of school and eventually without a stable home. By the time he was only 16, he was sleeping wherever he could, sometimes in bathrooms, sometimes on a friend's couch, and many nights on his own with no safety net in place. Reporters who later spoke with him described a young man navigating a level of instability as most adults struggle to survive. What he kept anchored was music, not as a career plan, but as a coping mechanism. Even during the toughest periods, witnesses recall seeing him humming melodies or scribbling lyrics on scraps of paper. What's striking is that, even then, Blue didn't see himself as a potential star. He was simply trying to hold himself together. His grandfather eventually intervened, offering the first consistent support Blue had in years. That support became the turning point, pulling him away from a path that could have ended with far away. But while that stability helped him survive, it didn't erase the trauma he carried, trauma that would later bleed into his voice, shaping the emotional intensity that stunned America's Got Talent judges years later. And as we'll uncover next, the turbo. His recovery was slow, and the emotional toll of his past didn't fade overnight. But it did light a fire inside him, a sense that if he could come back from that, there was nothing left to fear. That mindset would later fuel the performance that changed everything. Yet before he reached the AGT stage, he found himself returning to the streets, not as a lost teenager this time, but as a musician trying to reclaim his life one song at a time. Witnesses say the first time you heard Jourdan Blue sing on Bourbon Street, you knew she wasn't meant to stay there. When Blue resurfaced after his recovery, he didn't chase fame, he chased stability, and the streets of New Orleans became his workplace. He performed nightly as a busker, using a car battery to power his speakers and relying on the unpredictable generosity of passing tourists. For most performers, street singing is a stepping stone. For Blue, it was survival. He had his girlfriend, a young son named Jax, and a responsibility to provide. Residents described seeing him out there through heat waves, storms, and long nights when crowds were thin. His voice, raw, powerful, unmistakably emotional, began drawing small groups who would stop, film him, and post clips online. Some of those clips reached local virality, building a grassroots following. Yet even as this small fame grew, Blue was still fighting daily battles, exhaustion, financial instability, and the emotional weight of everything he had lived through. What made him stand out wasn't just talent, it was the intensity behind it. Listeners often described his performances as someone singing for their life. That authenticity is what eventually caught the attention of producers and influencers, people who insisted he deserved more than a Bourbon Street corner. And while Blue didn't know it at the time, one horrifying event on that very street would change his entire trajectory. The moment violence struck the very block where he performed, everything changed. Early this year, a violent attack unfolded on the same stretch of Bourbon Street where Blue regularly performed. The event deeply shook the community, and for Blue, who had spent countless hours on that block, it was a reminder of how fragile his world truly was. Witnesses said he appeared visibly shaken in the following days, often pausing mid-performance or scanning the crowd with heightened caution. Reporters later confirmed that the incident had a profound impact on him, prompting a reevaluation of his future. Blue reportedly told friends and fellow buskers that he didn't want his son growing up seeing him stuck in the same dangerous cycle. For someone who has already survived homelessness, addiction, and an OD, the idea of continuing to risk his safety for nightly street performances becomes increasingly unbearable. Then came the moment of decision. Encouraged by people who had filmed him, tipped him, and followed his journey online, Blue filled out an audition form for America's Got Talent. It wasn't a strategic move, it was a desperate leap towards something safer, something bigger. He walked into the audition room carrying years of emotional weight, uncertainty, and hope. What happened next would not only change his life, but also shock millions watching around the world. From his very first note, the judges froze, something rare in a room built to evaluate talent. On May 27, 2025, Jourdan Blue stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage. He didn't walk in with the confidence of a seasoned performer. He walked in with the gravity of someone who had lived through a lifetime of battles. When he started singing Breakout, the room shifted immediately. Judges leaned forward. Audience members stopped mid-applause. Blue's voice wasn't polished in the traditional sense. It was emotional, textured, worn, and achingly honest. Reporters covering the audition described the atmosphere as electric but heavy, noting how rare it was to see all 4 judges so visibly moved before a performance even reached its chorus. Blue didn't deliver perfect technique. He delivered storytelling through sound, and that's what broke through the noise of hundreds of auditions before him. Then came the moment that would define his season. Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer. Confetti erupted. The audience rose to their feet. Blue, overwhelmed, dropped to his knees with tears streaming down his face. It wasn't just a shock, it was the release of years of struggle, survival, and self-doubt. Overnight, he went from street performer to national news headline. But as every reporter knew, the golden buzzer was only the beginning. The real test was still ahead. Just when he needed his voice the most, it almost gave out on him. During the AGT quarterfinals, Blue faced a new obstacle: illness. Sources confirmed he was battling fever and vocal strain, leaving him uncertain whether he could perform at all. Producers reportedly offered him accommodations, but Blue refused to step back. He walked on stage visibly drained but determined. His performance of Biblical became one of the most emotional moments of the season. Journalists covering the episode noted that his voice carried a tremble, not from nerves, but from genuine physical struggle. Yet that vulnerability only amplified the emotional impact. The judges praised his resilience, and social media erupted with support, calling it one of the rawest performances of the night. His determination, even under pressure and illness, solidified the public's attachment to him. It proved his golden buzzer wasn't luck. It was earned through grit and authenticity. Despite the setback, Blue advanced to the finale, showing that the public wasn't moved by perfection. They were moved by truth. And truth is something his performances carry in every note. Even without the trophy, his name dominated headlines the next morning. Jourdan Blue made it all the way to the finale of America's Got Talent Season 20, a remarkable achievement for someone who had once been singing to survive on city sidewalks. When the results were announced, he finished in 3rd place. But the reaction from viewers and reporters made it clear. His journey had already won something more powerful than a title. Media outlets published stories highlighting his resilience, his emotional depth, and the unmistakable authenticity that set him apart. Unlike many finalists who fade quickly after the show, Blue's momentum only grew. His performances racked up views across platforms, his social media following surged, and music producers began reaching out. The finale didn't mark an ending, it marked the beginning of a new chapter. For the first time, Blue had the visibility, the credibility, and the opportunity to build a future defined not by struggle, but by potential. And in the aftermath, one question echoed across interviews and headlines alike: what will Jourdan Blue do next? Because after everything he has survived, his rise no longer feels like an underdog story. It feels like a warning to the world that this is only the beginning.